Welcome back to Sledgehammer Horror, guys. I am Ken Sledge, and let's talk horror. Now, today I am joined by the amazing Previn Wong. Previn, how you doing today?
I'm doing good, Ken. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, this is such an honor for me. By the good graces of social media, you and I were able to make contact. And before we talk about why you're here, I want people that don't know you to get to know you for a little bit. You were born in Vietnam, but of Chinese heritage. Your family immigrated as refugees to America back in 1980 during the war in Vietnam. Um, you've been a huge horror fan since the early 80s, and being of Asian heritage, you got the experience of watching American horror as well as Asian horror. So when you were young, which one affected you more? Was it the American horror or the Chinese horror that affected you more?
Definitely the American horror, because I don't know if it's just something with my parents, but every Chinese horror movie I've seen were kind of all like ghost related,
Right.
so supernatural ghosts. So I don't know if it was just my flavor, my parents' flavor of what they liked. They're definitely horror fans, so I was exposed to horror and they had no problem like showing it to me early on. But I don't know if it was just predominantly that's the culture of Asian horror is like supernatural. I mean, you see it in like J horror stuff. It's kind of more, a lot of it like supernatural, or if that's just like their preference.
Right.
So, you know, when you get exposed to American horror, especially with the effects and the practical effects,
Mhm.
it kind of at that point blew a lot of the Chinese horror away because their idea of a ghost is just like underlighting someone with green light,
Right.
the green, so and then when you see like stuff like Pumpkinhead and stuff like that, you're like, what?
Well, what I love about that is like you kind of are connecting the dots yourself, because what I was just about to talk about is how you're also a certified makeup artist. You produced a short film, Trick Not Treat, which is one of the first horror films ever minted as an NFT on any blockchain. Now, watching these American horror movies and getting the idea of the practical effects and stuff like that, did that really push you to want to do makeup?
It did because like in college, I went to like a junior college and did film production, and that's what I initially wanted to do. But after you finish the junior college, most people go to like to like a 4-year university, right? So instead, I was like, I shot the student films while you're in school, and I was like, these effects are bad, So, let me, at that point, especially indie filmmakers, you're doing everything yourself,
Sure.
right? So it's like, let me like do like some effect stuff, So at that time, there was only like 2 schools, one in like Los Angeles and one in like Florida.
Mhm.
So I went to the one in Los Angeles, Joe Blasco, and they teach you basically makeup techniques and then lightly into prosthetics and stuff like that.
Right.
So, so yeah, I completed the course, passed the exam, um, tried to get some work in it here or there, but the film scene, especially indie films, like a lot of times you have to work for free,
Hmm.
so there's only so much you can do for free while you're working like basically a retail job,
Right.
and to
Well, you
adjust your
still got to pay your
schedule.
bills and you still got to eat.
Right, so yeah, I kind of gave it up. It was just too hard to kind of break in.
Sure. Well, and a big thing about that too is like when you're doing stuff like that, and like you said, I've worked with a lot of different indie films, and you're right. A lot of time it is, you're doing it to help out a friend, or you're doing it to help out great creators that want to make their art come to life. Um, and while we're talking about making art come to life, Trick Not Treat. Where can people? Is this available to watch right now, and where can people watch it at?
Yeah, you can watch it right now. It's part of this blockchain called Wax. You have like everyone heard of Bitcoin
Mhm.
and maybe Ethereum, but this one's called Wax. It's a cheaper chain, so it's more affordable for everyone and it's greener, so it's
Mhm.
not as pollutant. And so yeah, I mean when I found out what NFTs are and I told, and by what I do with tarot cards, I meet like a lot of filmmakers, and I pitched the idea to a filmmaker that I featured in the set, and he was all about it. So I said, hey, let's just do this short film. Let's just get it minted, and see where it goes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
So
and you guys can check it out by clicking the links down here in the description. So, obviously, you can also follow Previn there. And you just brought it up a little bit, tarot cards. Um, you first started doing that in the early 2000s after going to San Diego Comic-Con, one of the best Comic Cons on the whole planet. You bought some old horror cards you used to collect as a kid, and knowing you were part of, you knew digital trading would end up being all the rage. Obviously, you had a background in that. Now tarot cards is digital. It's been running for 7 years strong. What can you tell people about tarot cards that may have never been a part of doing NFTs or digital trading?
yeah, so tarot cards is basically just a digital trading card app. So if you've collected baseball cards, Pokemon cards in the past, it's the same concept except you're like collecting it in an app on your phone.
Right.
And you have like a community in there, so you can basically like collect the movies that you've seen, and then you can also trade around with other people, right? So that's the fun part about the digital realm, is that you can collect these digital assets and then trade them around with people in the community.
Mm-hmm.
And like, with tarot cards, initially it was kind of like a collecting thing, but it's really morphed to like uh collecting and advertise and marketing thing for filmmakers and distributors. So, filmmakers, distributors can come to our platform, showcase their film, and unlike other regular marketing where you might buy like a banner ad on a like website, this takes it another level where your audience basically interacts. They're collecting the cards or images,
Right.
and some of the films, like the one I'm currently featuring right now, Barn 2, uh, we just released like last week a signature of Doug Bradley, who's in the
Mm,
film. And like a
very
couple
nice.
weeks, yeah, a couple weeks ago, we had Diana Prince, Darcy from,
Darcy.
yeah, yeah. So she was in the film too, and so instead of just like, so in addition to watching the films and also like reading review blogs, review podcasts, you can also now collect, you know,
Mm-hmm.
these digital assets, and like these digital signatures, and and trade them around and have fun with other people, and it's completely free. That's the other thing, so this app is free, collecting is free, so there's no obligation, there's no,
Right.
so
And is the app available for Apple and Android?
yeah,
I guess what, guys? You don't got to go far for that either, because those links are down here in the description as well. Or you can just go to your app store and check out Terror Cards. Join me on there. I would love to be able to see you guys on there. I'll be joining that tonight, waiting for the Sledgehammer horror card to be available.
yeah.
So another thing with this, Previn, is we talked about, some of the things that you've done with the digital trading cards, with tarot cards. And I think it's amazing. And, you're really building on something, because me personally, and anybody that knows me knows, I am a very big baseball fan. And growing up, even still to this day, I go to baseball card shows all the time. I love to collect baseball cards, and to do this digitally is so much fun. So I can't wait to become a part of this community and see what I can do in this community. That's my addiction. Some people unfortunately have unhealthy addictions with drugs and alcohol and gambling. Mine is baseball cards and, horror cards. So I'm glad that you are able to get me a new fix. So I'm very excited to go and check out what you do. It's an honor to have you here. If you're supporting me, I want to support you as well. And so all of you guys, please make sure you're checking this out. Like I said, if you're a collector, if you'd like to do different collections, I know we like physical media collections, but with this, like you said, you can do this and you can trade with people all over the community without leaving the comfort of your home. And it's completely free. So make sure you're checking this out. Now, in order, Previn, for you to be a producer of a horror film, for you to do tarot cards based on your favorite horror movies, horror had to start for you somewhere. So now I would like to go back to the past and talk about what got you started in the horror genre, your first horror movie. And I want to say, before we do this, we are almost to episode 400, guys. You've seen that when you looked at the number
Ooh,
on this thumbnail. We got 3 more episodes to go. So in 397 interviews, I've never talked about this movie, and I am over the moon excited to do so. So, Previn, your first horror movie was
Pieces, 1982.
You Don't Have to Go to Texas to Have a Chainsaw Massacre, baby. What this is one of those movies that, you look at the cover art, you read, a little bit of a synopsis, and it still gives you absolutely nothing as to what you're in for, even with the opening act. So, do you remember about how old you were the first time you had seen it?
Yeah, I mean, we came to the States, my family, in 1980. And so this movie came out in 82. So, and I remember seeing it in my first home there. So I had to be probably like about 7 or 8.
Yeah, what a great way to start your horror life. And if you guys haven't seen Pieces, I can't recommend it enough. At the time of filming, it is available on Shudder. I don't know if it will still be by the time the episode airs, but if go and check Shudder if you haven't seen it, because this is a movie you will have a lot of fun with, especially if you're a slasher fan. So, and you said that you watched it for the first time at a very young age, and we talked before this actually started, but your parents were big horror fans. Are your parents the ones that watched this with you for the first time?
Yep, they were. So my parents, are big horror fans. So growing up, I got exposure to both like Chinese and American horror films. And I don't know if it's the slasher nature of the film and maybe something new to my parents, and that's why they chose to rent it, that night. But, they let me watch it. It's not as protective as it is in America, where, you try to shield your kids from it, whether the violence or the sexual content, which this film has, tons of.
Tons of
And,
both.
and yeah, and I remember like, a lot of times you might watch a movie once and, you're scared I remember watching this movie like 2, 3 times. I don't know. I think my parents like watched it a couple times before they like returned it. You know?
And it's amazing that you can, because one thing I love about doing this podcast is not only am I learning about how horror started for people that I like and I respect and are big parts of the community in my eyes, but I'm also rewinding you back to that first night sitting there watching this movie with your parents for the first time. It's a memory that I can't buy you. It's a memory that nobody else has except for you. So to be able to bring these memories back out of you is super special to me. And we talked about there's a lot of violence and there's a lot of sex and boobies in this movie. But which scene would you say it was that affected you the most?
uh, I would say there's two. The
Mhm.
first one is the opening scene where where the kid is putting together like a puzzle, and a naked lady puzzle, and gets caught by his mom, and then you know in a fit of rage like murders the mom, and but that's okay. But the part was is after that he's still continuing trying to finish the puzzle.
Right. With after the aftermath, he's
Yeah,
still putting the puzzle together.
yeah, so as a kid, you know it's something that I mean I couldn't relate to, because I wouldn't do that to my parents, of course, but like you see that, hey, that kid's the same age as me.
You see a peer.
Yeah, yeah,
We've talked about that. I feel like if you watch something at a young age with a peer, somebody that is around your age that's gone through maybe the same things you've gone through, it's a little more effective because it's a lot more relatable to you. Um, and man, like I said, that opening scene when the detectives get there and he's still just working on the puzzle with the mess. Oh, it's a great scene.
yeah,
Um, so you said that was the first one that really affected you.
yeah.
What's the other scene that affected
Mm.
you?
Yeah, the second one was basically the ending, where all along the whole movie you see all the violence, and they hinted that pieces are missing every victim.
Hmm.
And they show kind of glimpses of what the killer is trying to do, but like at the very end, when kind of like the door swings around, and then like the corpse of all the pieces comes falling down. you know that that was unexpected, and that's kind of like one of the biggest, because there's not as many jump scares in that film because you see
Mhm.
the killer most of the time stalking.
Right.
You know? So that was kind of like the big jump scare that I didn't expect.
Right.
You
And it's where you get the title of the film from, really, is the
know?
ending. That's the
Right.
big part of it. So, one thing that I've been asking people a lot lately is, obviously Pieces is not part of a franchise. It is a standalone film. We never got any type of sequel or anything like that. But with requels, remakes, sequels being all the rage, is this a movie you would like to see maybe like a hard reboot or a remake of today?
Um, as a horror fan, I think the horror fans deserve it. I mean, it's well enough. It's a well enough film that if you somehow get into horror, and you like horror, you're gonna find your way to Pieces. Sort of like what
Mhm.
you said. You eventually you come across this film,
Yep.
and so I think it does deserve like a reboot. Um, I know you asked for some other people, like would I watch it? Uh, Maybe not, because from that point, from watching that early on, um, I'm not that big of a slasher fan. You know,
Sure.
so um, I prefer other subgenres like in the horror realm. So I
Mhm.
think for the horror industry, I think it deserves it. Whether if I would watch it, I don't know.
Right. Just keep it practical. That's all I ask. Just keep it practical. So you kind of there a second. You said slasher really is not your favorite subgenre of horror. If you had to pick your favorite subgenre, what would you say your favorite subgenre of horror is?
Um, it's pretty much like demons and like zombies, probably.
See,
Like
I'm a big fan of religious horror. I think it scares me the most.
hmm,
Growing up, I grew up very, very Christian, and there's something about that religious horror that just scares the hell out of me, man.
yeah. I mean, pieces will always hold a special place in my heart because they kind of open the door.
Hmm.
It's like a gateway. But
Yeah.
when once you get exposed to it, and I went to like the other subgenres, you know, like I think the most impactful movie to me was probably like Phantasm. You know,
What that's an underrated classic. The
yeah,
Tall Man scared me so bad as a kid, and my dad made me a sphere that had the spikes on it because I thought that ball was so cool. At a very young age, my dad made that for me, and I remember losing it in my neighbor's yard, and I was just heartbroken. But like that scene when you have the sphere coming and it goes into the guy's head, and then you have the blood start coming out the back, and the guy's pissing his pants. Like that scene scared me so bad as a kid, man. So much love for
yeah,
the Phantasm shout out.
yeah, and those little like midgets in the cloaks or those dwarfs.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
And real quick, I want to bounce back to Pieces. I do got one more question about Pieces.
yeah.
Um, we talk about the parts of horror that are very impactful and our favorite scenes of films, but obviously as horror fans we love the kills. We love to live vicariously through the kills in horror
Mhm.
films, and Pieces has an abundance to choose from.
Yeah.
But what kill would you say it was that stuck with you the most from Pieces?
Uh, I mean, after I watched it again, uh, the waterbeds one, because uh, waterbeds don't really exist anymore. So it, it's always a good scene when you see like a waterbed murder, because you have the water
Yeah.
always splashing around and mixed with blood and stuff like that. So like on rewatching again, that's pretty much like my favorite kill in that movie.
But it definitely intensifies when you have something done on a waterbed. If you look at the Johnny Depp kill in Nightmare on Elm Street, that
Right.
one's a little dramatic, but it always intensifies when you have a waterbed kill in a movie. So,
Yeah.
Previn, we know how horror started for you with Pieces and what this movie means to you. But now, my friend, my little buddy Ghostface is here, and he has a question for you. What's your favorite scary movie, Previn? What is your favorite horror movie of all time?
Uh, yeah, uh, if I had to watch one, just all the time, I would probably have to say like Evil Dead. the original one.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, because it has everything that I like, remote cabin, creepy cabin, demons, stuff like that. So
You were talking earlier about practical effects, man. You ain't gonna get much more practical effects than you do in Evil Dead.
yeah, yeah,
Um, it's a very fun. I mean, like it's a hard movie for me to watch still to this day. I absolutely love Evil Dead, love it. The tree scene I could do without. I'm not a big sexual assault fan.
mm,
Um, but that movie is just so ahead of its time in everything it does in the film. And in my opinion, it spurred one of the top three sequels of all time in Evil Dead 2. I put Evil Dead 2 up there with Aliens, Terminator 2, The Empire Strikes Back, Doctor Sleep, the Shining sequel. I think those are all like, just fantastic sequels. And that's how you make a
right,
sequel right. So,
right,
um,
yeah. I mean, I love Evil Dead too. I mean, just for like Bruce Campbell. I mean, for someone to like just drive a movie for the first like half hour, 30 minutes of a film,
yeah.
that's remarkable.
Oh, he's just so fucking fantastic. I mean, he's a one-man wrecking ball throughout Evil Dead 2 as well, like doing his own stunts and everything he does in that film. And it's funny because if you watch these movies back to back, Ashley and I just did this a couple weeks ago because we're working on something with that. But when you watch Evil Dead right back to back with Evil Dead 2, it's funny how Bruce's Ash character has changed so much. Like he's almost timid and meek in Evil Dead.
Oh
And then
yeah,
in Evil Dead 2, he's just this me against the world badass throughout the
yeah,
movie. And it's
yeah,
just I love the direction that they went. And then obviously you're getting what you got now with Ash versus the Evil Dead, the TV series, which was just so fantastic. Such a bummer that got cut, so short lived.
yeah.
But so man, I've had an amazing time learning how horror started for you and some of the things that you're working on now. And I do want to ask, we have one last question we always ask before we end the podcast. And I think I know the answer, but according to my script, I gotta ask anyway. What we're gonna do is go back to pieces and we're gonna rank this on a skull count. Now, we're not judging it on acting, production, score, direction, nothing like that. What we're doing here, my friend, is we are ranking pieces on how much it affected you on your first viewing. So 0 skulls being not effective, 5 being extremely effective. You can use half and quarter skulls anywhere in the middle. Previn, what would your ranking of, I almost said Evil Dead, of pieces be?
Yeah. I would probably say it's probably a three. A three because I see it as like a gateway, almost like a gateway drug.
Sure.
It opened the door for me to this, to horror and horror film.
Mhm.
But uh, you know, watching it, I did not get that like, you know, I love this as I watch like, like I said, Phantasm,
Yeah.
Mausoleum, or one of these other things. So
Yeah. And I can see where that would gateway you there. And as a little boy, though, we're watching. I didn't watch Pieces as a little boy. I would be completely transparent with that, everybody. I have a buddy named Greg Wheeler, and he introduced me to Pieces a couple of years, maybe a year ago. He was like, dude, have you ever heard of Pieces? And I was like, no, I haven't. And he's like, dude, the slogan is you don't need to go to Texas to have a chainsaw massacre. And I just thought that was the most brilliant thing I've ever heard. Because I love taglines in movies. Growing up in the
yeah,
80s, we're big tagline fans. Alien, in space, no one can hear you scream.
mm,
House, ding dong, you're dead. Like these are the things that like really I loved reading these on movie cases when we were kids. And when I heard that, I was like, that's so genius. So man, again, thank you so much for coming on and doing this. Everybody else, this is the end of the third act. The credits are about to roll and the curtain's about to drop. But before that happens, there's some links down here in the description that you guys need to check out. So that way you can follow Previn on social media, become a part of Terror Cards. I will be there. Find me. Let's trade some cards together. So, like I said, Previn, please don't go anywhere. I got a couple more questions for you. Everybody else, as always, keep talking horror, stay what you are, and we'll see you guys soon.